Alright, same day, different video. This is part 2 of the 2016 Ford Focus engine replacement. This engine was out of time and we killed it with the lube. So now the engine is out, transmission's over there. Transmission's good. I'm just gonna take the clutch off and clean it up a little bit. This is the donor engine here. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with taking this engine apart to where the intake's off, the wiring's off, everything. I want this engine to look like that, and then I can put it back in the car and then start reassembling everything. So I like this part because this is the 50% mark. So from this point it's just reassembly. So this is fun. It's always exciting to see if the engine actually runs, which I know it will because this came from a good junkyard where we usually get engines. So I know it's gonna run. It's just, you know, it's always the thing like, hey, did I miss a ground? Did I miss anything? So always take your time, double check, triple check everything. Alright, this should be easier to work on this thing. Filter housing's broken. I'll have to reuse the original one. See, it's the little things. It's the little things that take time. It is what it is. One thing is, I realized when you buy a used engine, the thermostat, if the engine's been sitting without coolant for a while, they get stuck and then you gotta replace it. So what I usually try to do is either get a new one, which I don't have, and I'm not gonna go buy one right now because it's getting late. It's not that it's getting late, I don't want to waste time. I'm just gonna, I know that one was good, so I'm gonna swap that one over. And they cut the pipe a little bit anyway, so I'm just gonna swap over the housing, swap over the filter housing, and remove this clutch, remove the rest of these cut hoses. See, the junkyard, they don't care, they're just trying to get the engine out as fast as possible. But how long does it take to remove a clamp instead of like cutting stuff, you know, because they just damaged that. What if I didn't have that? That's why we can't have nice things. Comment below if I should take apart that old engine and see the inside, see how much damage it did with the lube. Glide. If anybody wants a used clutch, I got you. No, don't ever put used clutches. Just get a new clutch and not worry about it. Yeah, see, look at that. It's got like rust on it. It's been sitting for a while. Yeah, there's not much life left in this clutch. It's basically down to the rivets. What sucks about these flywheels on the Focus is it moves internally, so you can't even get it resurfaced or anything at a machine shop. I tried that before and they told me to go. You know what? Look, it's got a date on it, 2016. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's got a few miles left, but I'm just gonna toss it. Alright, so I got the engine sitting where I want it, and now it's time to connect the transmission. But before I do that, like I said earlier, I want to make sure that this transmission is 100% good. Even though I know it drove good, but I'm just gonna check the clutch and everything like that. Right now it's in park. I'm gonna remove actuator A and B and just make sure that the forks are moving freely. I'm gonna move them back and forth a couple times and see how they do. Another common question I get is, what size socket is it for the actuator removal? And it's E8. If you don't know what E8 is, maybe you shouldn't be working on cars. Just saying. Because a lot of people called me out and said, hey, that's not the right socket. Well, like, it's not like I work on these daily, so why would I know, right? And then it just comes right out. So I'm gonna get the tool. So I have the tool that came with the full kit. It's called a spline tool, and on this one it says it's 6mm, and I'm not sure if that's correct, so don't take my word on it. But I did find these on Amazon, and I had the link posted, and they sold out. Then I found them on eBay and posted a link, and they sold out. So I'm guessing everybody's just buying the tool, which is the smart thing to do. Why would you pay $180, $200 for a complete kit when you can just buy the tool? Because the rest of it's useless. And here's the thing about the forks. If you put your tool in and you can turn it with your hands counterclockwise like this, that's already a good sign, and it springs back by itself. That's a good sign. If you're having to force it, that's a bad sign. Force it and it's engaged in the clutch, then you're breaking the fork. So if you put the tool in and you can't turn it by hand, chances are you're gonna have to take the transmission down, take the clutch out, and look at the fork and see if you can clean it up and save it. Because if you force it, you're just gonna break it, and you're gonna have to replace it. So yeah, this one looks good. I am gonna turn it 14 times counterclockwise, just in case, a couple times, and make sure it springs back on its own. But it's already showing a good sign. So about 6 months ago, I made a video doing this when the transmission was on the vehicle, just to show people that you can lubricate these if they're not broken, right? And I used this little impact right here. Now, I did it so many times that I got used to it, to where, you know, you don't fully sand it like, and so I shouldn't have done that, because I didn't realize people are just gonna take a big impact and just send it. A lot of people broke their forks. So you kind of have to, you know, think about what you're doing before you do that. So I'm just gonna show it by hand now. Got the tool in, got the ratchet. I got an extension just to make things easier, and we're going 14 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And you can kind of feel it, like kind of holding tension, right? So when I let go, it's just gonna spring back. So that's a good fork right there. If it was a bad fork, it would either be stuck at 14, or it would go like halfway, and when it's sticking, that's what's making the clutch spin, and that's when it gets hot, and that's when it tells you to pull over for 5 minutes and wait. When that happens, of course, you're creating more dust in the clutch and the bell housing, and all that dust is sticking to the forks, making things worse. So You know, a lot of people, what they do is they just floor it. I used to do the same, and that's when I was like, hey, I gotta take this transmission apart and find out what's wrong with it. Because, you know, I just got tired of hearing, oh, it's the TCM, it's the TCM. It's TCM maybe 1% of the time. Out of like 60 cars, lately maybe there was like 2 bad TCMs. It's usually the forks. Sometimes it's the bearing that pushes the clutches in. But, you know, the forks just have a hard life in this transmission, and I was just thinking of ways to improve it, but really, I mean, what can you do? You know what I mean? So my advice, don't drive it like a race car. I know people hate to hear it, but it's not a race car. It's a 2.0 grocery getter. If you want a race car, get a race car. Don't drive these like one. Because I did see these original transmissions with the original clutches have 300,000 miles. So, I mean, if it's driven properly, it'll last. If not, you're gonna be doing this daily. Alright, so I'm just gonna double check fork B just in case. Again, this vehicle transmission wise was fine. There was no issues. It did a relearn and everything. No codes in the TCM, so that was a good sign. But since it's out and I'm making a video, might as well show it again. Possibly will answer some of the questions that I can remember. But see, again, you can feel it right away. Like, you turn a little bit and it goes right back. They're spring loaded, so you can actually turn the 14 times by hand like this without even a ratchet, and then boom, release it, you know. But it's just easier to count with the ratchet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And it will go a little bit more than 14. You just gotta be careful, because like if it bottoms out and you force it, the fork is gone. So just do 14. If you do 15, it's fine. Just don't force it more. So boom, released, it went back. So this is a good transmission. The clutch is all good. This transmission is ready to go back in. You know, it's funny because there's been times where I got one of these cars. I don't remember if it was Facebook Market or one of the auctions, but it was wrecked. It wasn't like, you know, horribly wrecked in the front. So it was wrecked. It had a transmission problem. I think it was a TCM, maybe a fork. I don't remember. Something was wrong with the transmission, and then on top of that, the engine was bad. So it was like everything, you know. So at that point, you just want to scrap the car, but you know, sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not. Almost forgot to put the flywheel on. You don't have to have it, but it helps. Also, it can only go one way, so you gotta line up the holes. The other way, they don't match up, so don't worry, you can't get it wrong. So don't forget, there's a triangle on the flywheel. It's kind of hard to see, but I've marked it, and it's right there. So you want to put the triangle where the starter is, so you can line that up. There's also the same triangle on the clutch, which is right there. So you want to line up the triangle. So you want the triangle where the starter would be, and I've already got it marked so I could see it. So now all I have to do, slide the transmission under, lift it up, line up the 6 studs, and bolt it back together. So the reason is why I want to put the transmission to the engine right now before I assemble the rest of it. That's because that's how I took it apart. I'll give you an example. I'm sure there are other things. There is a bolt that goes through the engine block into the transmission that is too long to remove if the cat is bolted to the engine already. So when you remove the transmission and not remove the cat, the bolt kind of stays in there. But now I have it out, so if I would assemble that and then try to put that bolt in, it would not work. So you always want to put things back together the way you took them apart. So if you have a bad memory, just write it down or take pictures as you go, and then just do the reverse. So it's not that hard. Anyone can do it. Just a couple tools is all you need. One more thing, before you put the transmission in, double check your wiring. Make sure these wires didn't get pinched or cut. These two are the most common to get damaged when you're removing the transmission, because it's so close to the subframe that, you know, some people commented back and said, hey, actually I broke a wire and it didn't work. These are speed sensors. There's like 3 of them, 1, 2, 3, and you just want to look out and make sure the wires didn't get damaged. If they did, it's easier to repair while the transmission is still out, because it's really tight underneath. And yeah, so double check. You don't want to take this transmission off again. So tip of the day. So now I can get this crane out of the way and I'm done with it on this car. I just need to start assembling, and I'm gonna go ahead and put all the bolts around the bell housing, torque them down. Then I'm gonna put all 6 nuts on the clutch and flywheel, flex plate, whatever you want to call it, and then go from there. But that's the 2 biggest things, is making sure that all the bolts are in, holding the engine and the transmission together. Wiring is not complicated because everything just falls into place. If you route it wrong, you won't be able to connect things. So everything goes on its stud, like so, each coil. That goes underneath. Just make sure you plug everything in. I mean, if you don't, it's not the end of the world. You'll throw a check engine light, or can read a code. You can go back and connect it, but just do it right the first time, because if you don't follow along with the harness, you're gonna miss something, and it's gonna take you a while to figure out what you missed. Especially grounds. Grounds I've missed myself, and that's no fun. I don't like redoing something. If it's on a different car, doing the same thing is not bad. If you gotta do the same thing on the same car, that grinds my gears. You know what else grinds gears? When you put the wrong fluid in the transmission. Oh, it looks like the 2014 and up or 2015 and up have a head temperature sensor and a coolant temperature sensor. So yes, that's the main difference. These are O2 sensors. That's the fuel rail or fuel pressure sensor. It's going to be the evap line. One tip is, when you're connecting stuff, kind of first route everything to where you think it's going to go, and then connect it. Otherwise, you're going to have to go back and redo a couple things. So there's not much left. We've got the, connect the rest of the connectors underneath, like the AC, the crank position sensor underneath, and then put the intake in, hook up the coolant lines, and fill up the fluids. Usually I get to this point where everything's connected, I'll put oil in it and then start it, make sure it runs. But you know what, I might as well just complete the whole thing and go from there. I'll be test driving here in about 20 minutes. Here's a good one. I almost missed this ground right here. This little guy. So when I removed this filter and the housing and everything, it just seems like this lube was just too thick, you know, and the filter probably got clogged and it wasn't letting anything through. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drain this because I don't have a new filter for the new engine. I'm gonna reuse this. I'm just kidding. Never reuse a filter. Always get a new filter. Always use the proper parts. Motorcraft filter, Motorcraft oil. Don't read on the internet and be like, oh man, this guy recommended. The guy recommends water. Are you gonna put water in it? No, you're not. So use the proper parts. Make your cars last forever. So right before I put the oil in, which is the right oil, synthetic blend 5W20 Motorcraft, we got a new filter. Before, this is my last tip, before you pour the oil in, always remove the drain plug. No matter where you get the engine, you don't know what's in it. It's supposed to be empty. You never know, maybe it's been sitting outside or something. Maybe water got in it, who knows. So remove the drain plug and make sure that all the oil or whatever's in there is out. It's nice and tight. It's supposed to be empty, but let's see. Oh, okay. So just a little bit of oil left over. Nothing crazy, which is good. So we'll just let it all drain out. Got a brand new filter here. Put the plug back in, and we're gonna pour the oil, and it's ready to start. Once I connect the battery, of course. So these units hold about 4.5 quarts or so. Here we go. That's 4.5. Do a quick check. All right, battery's getting connected. All right, what a mess, but this is what I was waiting for. It's already dark outside, so this took longer than I thought because I was on and off, but let's see if she starts. Let's just go over. Got the oil in, coolant in, transmission fluid in. I think she's ready. 2, 1. I didn't prime it, so you can hear it, the fuel bubbling. Man, I started tripping because this thing wouldn't start. I tried like 10 times and it wouldn't crank. My guess is maybe the injectors dried up because this engine's been sitting. So I'm gonna let it idle, get it to full temp, add some coolant. Looks like the coolant's low, and see how she runs after about 5 minutes. Right, let's check codes and go on the test drive. Oh, she sounds great. So I got up to full temp, I did a transmission relearn, and I want to make sure it goes through all the gears flawlessly. And it's pretty much, I can tell it's already great. I mean, the idle's good, and it keeps the RPM steady. So successful engine replacement. Stay tuned for more videos like this and others, and if you have any questions, comment or hit me up on Instagram. Later.